But this one is a slightly more somber story, I'm afraid, as it's set in Hiroshima, which obviously is famous for one thing, quite a terrible event. But before we get to that, our story begins with Tsutomu, or Tsutomu Yamaguchi is his full name, who is a 29-year-old naval engineer. And he spent the summer in Hiroshima working on an oil tanker. And he's looking forward to getting home and seeing his family the following day. He's been there for a few months now. He's a bit sick of it. He's a bit knackered. But he's kind of like your classic man of a bygone generation in that he's never ill. He never wants to make a fuss. He never calls in sick. He doesn't enjoy work, but he kind of like lives for work. So yeah, during this time, he's made some friends, a guy called Akira and another guy called Kuniyoshi, I believe you pronounce it, and both of which are also traveling back to his hometown the next day. So they're like, oh, we'll go together. So the following morning comes and he's walking through the shipyard one last time before he goes. He's just doing some bits and bobs. When all of a sudden, he hears the sound of an aircraft above. And I think I know you know where this is going. Now, anyway, yeah, this is not unusual in wartime, obviously. A plane going overhead is quite common in Japan at the time. But what was unusual was what happened next, as a bomb was dropped, but it was attached to a parachute. Now, bombs usually hit the ground before going off, but this bomb exploded in the air. And I guess you know that this was the first nuclear bomb set off. There wasn't a test. There was a huge explosion. Yamaguchi was sent flying across the yard and into a nearby potato patch, of all places. He opened his eyes.
On the naval yard?
It must have been next to the naval yard, I'm guessing. He opened his eyes.
I'm sorry, they can't have been healthy potatoes, all that jet fuel.
Well, not afterwards. Anyway, there was a potato patch, all right. So yeah, he'd gone blind temporarily, and he'd lost his hearing for a bit as well. So he was not in a good way. And he's sort of wandering around this yard, and he sees this huge mushroom cloud once his eyesight comes back, and he has no idea what's going on. He's all over the place, and he's severely burned. So he walks around for a bit, and thankfully, miraculously, in fact, his friends Kiri and Kuniyoshi have survived, surrounded by people who have not survived, but they have. So they're sort of like, they don't know what to do, but they end up in this air raid shelter to sort of shelter from, like, everyone's on fire. Like, the place is not looking good. And they're in there with loads of other badly hurt people. And the next morning, all of a sudden word gets out that somehow the train station is running in Hiroshima. Now there's a joke in there for
they can run it and we can't run it because there's a slight wind.
yeah that. So they set off because they want to go home. Like, they now more than ever they want to be at home. So they set off through the town and they have to wade through like rubble, remains, and they reach a river, but the bridge has collapsed. So they've got to swim through the river, and the river is like full of bodies. It's like, it's a horrendous scene. But they venture through and they get to the train station, and remarkably, trains are running. And more specifically, the train to their hometown is running. So they're like, brilliant. They get on board, and they're going through the town on this train, and it's like everything's still on fire. It's horrendous, and they're surrounded by people who are now evacuating the town. They're not just like traveling, they're not just going on holiday. So these people are just like a mess. They're like,
so how far? So did the bomb fall right near where he was?
So I think he was like a couple of miles out. Just because obviously if you're near the center, you would have been incinerated.
I thought even a few miles out.
Well, he was just far enough that he was hurt, but he survived.
How much further was the train station?
I don't know. I'm not sure where the train station is. But yeah, so they're on this train, and he gets home, and he's so ill, he can't actually go straight home. He has to go to the hospital. Word gets out to his family that he's at the hospital, so they come and find him. But he's so badly burnt and he's covered in bandages that they don't recognize him. And even when he's telling them it's him, they're like, straight up, they just refuse to believe it's him. And he's like telling his mum, like, it's me. And she's like, no, this is a ghost. Not having it. But the events of Hiroshima have now got out, so they know that this has happened. And they're like amazed that he survived. They thought he was dead. But Yamaguchi being Yamaguchi, the next morning he wakes up and he's like, right, back to work. He heads down to where he normally works when he wasn't on the placement in Hiroshima. He walks in, everyone's like, what the hell happened to you? He's like, it's fine. But his boss is convinced.
Sure, it can't have been that nonchalant.
His boss is like convinced that he was not at Hiroshima. So Yamaguchi's like, oh, I was at Hiroshima yesterday. I was in the bomb. and I got back. But he's like, there's no way you would not have survived that. He takes him into this like boardroom with like all the other bosses, and he's basically just going through exactly what happened, because they've heard about the bomb, but they can't believe that a single bomb would like wipe out a whole city. As he's describing the bomb, he's talking about like, he's like, there was a big ball of light. Everything just set on fire. They just didn't believe him. They're like, no, it didn't happen. But I guess, he's home, he's alive, his family are like, they're going to look after him. Everything's going to be all right. The end was not yet happening.
That wasn't the end?
That was not the end, I'm afraid.
Okay.
Because I left out one very crucial detail, and that was Yamaguchi's.
It was all a dream.
It wasn't all a dream, but I didn't tell you the name of his hometown, which was Nagasaki, which also is famous for one specific thing. As he's describing about this bomb, all of a sudden there's another burst of light. The room around him explodes. Everyone's sent flying. He's sent flying once again, not into a potato patch this time, but into another room. For the second time in 3 days, Yamaguchi had experienced a nuclear explosion. He's one of only a few people in the world to ever
He survives them both.
He survives again, but this time he has the added dread of like, my family. His family are in Nagasaki. So he rushes to his home through the ruins of the town again, passing bodies and fire and rubble again. He is like a mess at this point, because obviously there's radiation as well. He's like throwing up. He's barely functioning. He fears the worst, but thankfully he gets there and both have survived. He can't believe it. What happened is even more incredible. His wife was actually looking for burn ointment at the time for him. And because she was looking for that burn ointment, she was close to a tunnel. So at the moment that flash happened, she dives into the tunnel with
So she was looking for burning cream, and because she was looking for burning cream, she was near a tunnel.
She was
burning cream.
She was closer to the tunnel than she would have been if she wasn't looking for that.
Okay.
Maybe the burn ointment cupboard they have is near a tunnel. Right. I don't know. Okay. Dives in there with a child. They both survive. Yeah, he lived a pretty full life, even though he was obviously quite ill. He died in 2009 at 93.
Wow.
And he actually only ever came out and started talking about his experience in 2000. He pretty much, like, people would talk about him, talk about his life, and he wouldn't mention that he survived 2 atomic bombs. He started writing poetry about the bombs and supported movements to rid the world of nuclear weapons up until his death. And that is the story of Yamaguchi.
I don't know whether he is the luckiest man ever or the unluckiest man ever.
Yeah. Apparently there's a few others who also somehow were at both places when they went off, but he is the most famous case.
Real stories.